Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Aaron.
Aaron is here, but no one's messed up this evening. This evening, we're doing a chat with former Sea Org member B. Mood. How you doing?
Doing all right. How about yourself?
Doing great. Okay, so B, that's what you go by. Mm-hmm. So many people who have left the Sea Org start using different names after they leave. Is that on purpose, or like was it conscious? Was it intentional?
Yeah, I mean, I'm also trans, so it has to do with that too. But okay. I do enjoy not hearing a name that was like screamed at me for a long time.
Yeah, that does make sense. Okay, so let's start out because I want to give some people some context. How old are you now?
So I am now 31. I'll be 32 in May, I think.
Okay, and you were in the Sea organization. You were on staff and in the Sea Org from what age to what age?
So I joined staff at like our local Class 5 church when I was 15. And I was on staff from when I was 15 until I was 20. And then when I was 20, I got married and joined the Sea Org with my husband at the time. And then I was in the Sea Org for another like 7 years. And I left in October of 2018.
So people have a really hard time wrapping their minds around the fact that so many young kids, like 15 is still considered a child in the real world. And yet so many kids work for Scientology as staff members and even Sea Org members. How did that come about for you?
So for me, my mom worked at a local Scientology school. So I went to that Scientology school. So all of my friends were Scientologists. Like it was very insulated. It was a bubble. And I graduated from that high school when I was 15, which graduated high school, like Scientology school. It's whatever. Was raised in a cult. So,
so this school, you call it a high school. Was it even like an accredited school? Was it in someone's living room?
So it was an actual school. It was similar to Delphi. It shared a campus with Delphi LA for a while. It's called Renaissance Academy. A bunch of Scientology kids went there. Basically, everyone who washed out from Delphi went to Renaissance, and everybody who washed out from Renaissance went to Pinewood. And that was like the progression down the ladder.
Oh, that's great.
So I was like right in that middle, like burnout school. And I say high school, it was K through 12. It was all inclusive. There was like 6 or 7 teachers, broken up into like little classrooms. My graduating class was like 10 or 11 people. And no, it wasn't accredited. Like you couldn't get into a college with a high school diploma from Renaissance. You would have to go get a GED in order to like get into college. So when I graduated, we had been in Scientology for a while. At that point, my mom got in when I was like 7 or 8. And so I was firmly like in the Scientology mindset of like college is for nerds. There's no point in going to college. Like you're not going to learn anything useful. You got to just enter the workforce and like be an adult at that point. But who's going to hire a 15-year-old? Nobody. So I spent like 6 months submitting applications at like McDonald's, and they were like, no, absolutely not. So then I ended up joining staff instead.
Interesting. So your mom herself was not on staff at the local org. She was just working for the Scientology school.
Oh no, she was on staff and she was working for the local Scientology school. She was a chaplain. She actually went to flag for that 2001 evolution.
Oh, I get it. Okay. So your mom's on staff. You're going to a Scientology school. You finish, and were you given a choice to join staff?
So the way it actually happened was my mom sent me to the Free Winds. She sent me to the ship for one of those like future OT convention things that they do, which is like 2 straight weeks of just like you go on course and you go in session and you like
2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah.
That's a long time.
2 straight weeks of you do course, you do some like objectives like book and bottle. You do some like team building exercises, and you get to go on like an excursion. And it's like, future OTs, whatever. So I got recruited to join the Sea Org. My dad has never been a Scientologist. So when I signed my contract and I was like, I want to join the Sea Org, he was like, absolutely not, over my dead body. It's not happening. So then it was like, okay, how about I join staff instead? And he was like, fine, I'll take it.
Wow. Okay. So your dad, I forgot, your dad was never a Scientologist.
No, he was never a Scientologist. He was always like antagonistic. I was always forever doing like handlings on him.
Interesting. Are you still in touch with him?
I am not. He got into meth late in life, and I am no longer in contact.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Okay. So what was life like as a 15-year-old staff member?
It was not great. I mean, I always was raised to be like respectful and polite and like toe the line and try to do the right things and try to like, be good. And I was a good kid as far as that all goes. Like I wasn't super rebellious. But like in doing so, what ended up happening was I got trapped into this staff contract where, there were like 20 or 30 people on staff at the time. This was in like 2006, 2007. And out of those people, like everybody had a day job except for like 3 of them, including me. And so immediately it was like, okay, well, you don't have a day job, so you need to be here full time during the day so that like somebody can man the reception desk and answer the phones. But nobody is here during the day to actually like train you on anything. So you also have to stay nights and weekends so that we can train you. So I was immediately at like 15 years old working 70, 80 hours a week and just had no choice in the matter. And was just like, if you don't do this, you're in trouble. And it just like immediately went out of control.
Wow. And which org was it again?
Valley Org, San Fernando Valley.
And was it a one shift org or was it Day and Foundation?
It was a one shift org. They didn't split until they went ideal.
Okay. So, wow. So how long did that go on for?
So that went on for like six months or so. And then a project came and was like, we got to send people to Flag. You're going to join the TTC, Technical Training Corps, like going full-time training. And I was like, I super don't want to do that. And they were like, then we're going to give you an ethics interview. And I was like, I've changed my mind. Send me to Flag.
And so that's what you did? You went to Flag?
Yep. So I went to Flag. I was at Flag for like 8-9 months. It was terrible. There is something to be said for the friends that you make in the outdoor training program. Like it really is, you get bonded real quick. And it's just like, these are my people. But it was also, I was there when the basics came out. I was in the outdoor training program at Flag when the basics came out. And so it very quickly became like everybody, including the outdoor trainees, were doing like overnight shifts doing call in to sell people their basics. Every con in the program had quotas that they had to meet. And so you would go on course and then you would get off course and then you would make phone calls to try and sell basics to people. And I was just like, and I was on work study because my org like couldn't pay the bills. And so I finally at a certain point was just like, I literally can't do this. I want to go home. And Jason Hemphill was like, you are not allowed to go home. So I pretended to pass out on work study and they had to send me home because I was a medical risk.
Wow. For everyone watching who may not know what it means when the basics came out. So what was it like 2007 or 8?
2007, summer 2007.
David Miscavige re-released pretty much every book and lecture that L. Ron Hubbard had ever published. I guess he removed all the semicolons. Like he just republished everything in a new version with better glossaries and whatnot. And for the next 3, 4, 5 years,
Probably
there was
5 years.
all-out crush effort to sell these new giant expensive books packages and lectures packages to just every Scientologist in the world. It was literally just Scientologists selling Scientology books to other Scientologists full-time for years.
Yep.
Thankfully, I left the Sea Org just before that happened, and so I wasn't involved in all that, thank God. But I did not know that Flag out-of-org trainees were even put onto book selling. Like that, if you believe in Scientology, that violates like every policy in the book.
Yeah, it was, I mean, like after like two years or so, it started calming down and like things started to slowly go back to normal. But yeah, that first year when they were released, like everyone like even in the class 5 orgs, once I got sent back to Valley org, like they had staff pulled off post, just taking shifts, doing call-in, trying to sell basics, doing nothing else.
And I know this isn't the main point of your story either, but I think the viewers will find this interesting. So you're a full-time staff member at Valley Org. They send you to Clearwater, Florida for full-time training, where you're living in a hotel room with probably 8 to 10 other women, right? A motel room. Were you at the hacienda or the motels?
I was at the motels.
So there's got to be at least 7 or 8 women in there with you in that studio room.
Yeah, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It was like eight of us in a room.
8 women in a studio motel room with 1 bathroom. You're getting 3 meals a day. Your org is supposed to pay per week. Who knows how much money? Do you know how much they're supposed to pay flag per week for your?
Like $150 a week, $200 a week, like not a ton.
And they're not paying it.
No, they couldn't afford it.
And so in order to work off the $200 a week, how many hours of labor did you have to do for flag, and what kind of labor per week?
So, I mean, it was hard labor. It was like repainting things, throwing away trash, gardening, like different things like that. And it was every weekday morning for 3 hours, like first thing in the morning before you go on study, you do your like work study thing. And then Sunday, like you didn't do it on Saturdays, but then Sundays it was like 7 hours or something like that. So it was a lot.
So about 22 hours, over 20 hours of skilled maintenance work, right?
Yeah.
So you're working off your debt at the rate of only like $10 an hour.
Something like that.
But you're already working 70 hours a week for nothing. Like, it's insanity. And are you still a minor at this point?
Yeah, I was still 15.
Still 15 years old.
I turned 16 like right when I got there.
But what year again?
I maybe turned like 16 while I was there, right at the beginning when I was there, but I was definitely still a minor.
So you've got children crossing state lines, being forced to do labor to pay off the debt their org is supposed to be paying. It's just insanity. People think this stuff doesn't happen anymore, and it definitely does.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. I do think they don't do work study currently as part of the thing, but
the only reason they don't do it currently is because the trainees are studying at night and sleeping during the day.
Exactly. But they were like, it for sure was still a thing up till 2018. Like when I left, it was still a thing.
Incredible. Okay, so in order to get kicked out of flag, you have to fake passing out while working.
Yep.
And why does flag kick you out for that reason?
It's a medical risk. So it's not, so like if I passed out and it was like, oh, you're dehydrated and it's fine, it's whatever, then it's like maybe passable. But if they can't figure out why you passed out and you need further testing, so it might be like a brain tumor, or it might be like passing out randomly is not, like you don't take that lightly if that actually happens to you. That could be something really seriously medically wrong with you, and they don't want you to die on the base because that's a liability for them.
Yeah. It's the only thing they learned from the Lisa McPherson scandal is if you are posing any possible risk that you might die on the base, you're not allowed anywhere near the base. Just to protect their own butts. It's not that they actually care about the members.
Oh yeah, no. It's pretty clear too. Like it was not ever a tone of like, we're worried about you. It was a tone of like, you need to not be on the base because you are a liability.
Yeah. So then what happens after they send you home? Are you sent home in disgrace, or like what happened there?
So I'm sent home on like a medical LOA, leave of absence. And I'm supposed to get like a bunch of super expensive medical testing done, which we can't afford because my mom is on staff and works at a Scientology school and makes no money. So instead I just never go back, and I get a bazillion calls from like Jason Hemphill telling me to come back, and I ignore them, and then I'm in trouble, and it's counted as like a blow.
But you're still on staff back home in California now, right?
Yep, still on staff, still trained.
They're just
locally.
saying you're blown from flag.
Yeah, it was a whole thing. So I ended up finishing my training locally. I trained as a word clearer, and then the day supervisor got busted, and they very quickly trained me up as the day supervisor. So then I was supervising the classroom. By this time I was like 17, supervising everybody full-time, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. I also like developed a really nasty like viral infection while I was at Flag, and it just like hung out for the next 5 years. I never figured out what that was about. I was just like sick for 5 years. So I was supervising, and then Dallas org went ideal. And when Dallas went ideal, that was like the first round of going around to all the existing orgs and like scraping staff out of the existing orgs to dump them into Dallas so that the org could go ideal. And a couple of our staff members got scraped, and I got transferred into HCO, which is like human resources / ethics enforcement. So then I was in charge of HCO for a couple of years. And I also started dating one of the other staff members there. I was 17 when I started dating him. He was 21, red flag. And then I'm like zooming through this because it's a lot. It's like 12 years of history. So then we both joined the Sea Org together, got married like the day we routed onto the EPF specifically so that we wouldn't like go out 2D, even though we had been engaged for 3 years. And then joined the Sea Org in January of 2012.
Okay, so at that time, you'd been on staff for 4 years, 5 years almost?
Yeah, something like that. 2006 to 2012, like late 2006
Oh, okay.
to
So 6
almost
years,
something
depending
like that,
on
yeah.
depending on
5,
when it
6
started
years.
and stopped. Okay, so
Yep.
you join the Sea Org. How much of a change was that for you? Did things get harder or easier compared to life as a Valley Org staff member?
God, it was, I mean, so as a staff member, mostly we just didn't get paid. Like it was a super good week if we got paid anything, like literally $5. And it was an amazing week if we got more than like $20. That happened maybe twice a year. So technically joining the Sea Org meant I was getting paid more. And that was one of the reasons that I joined, is like I was already doing, 60, 70, 80 hours a week. I had to provide my own food. I had to provide my own housing. I had to provide my own transport. So I was still living with my parents. He was still living with his parents. Like there just wasn't really a future there. And I still had like another 2.5 years left to go on my staff contract. And I was so miserable. I was just like really deeply unhappy. One of the things I was responsible for was recruitment and like getting other people to come join staff. And I just like could not bring myself to lie to people, because if I told them the truth about working conditions, they would laugh in my face, rightfully so. So the only way to get somebody to join staff is to just flat out lie to them. And I was like, how am I supposed to do that? And so that was kind of the struggle for like 2 years, was trying to figure out how to like make that work in my brain. And so then I, breaking a staff contract, like by that point, my freeloader debt from staff would have been $80,000-$90,000. So that wasn't like a viable option. I was 18. I had, a pretty useless high school diploma, no translatable work experience, like no real contacts outside of Scientology. And so it was just like, what am I like? I will give anything to not be working here anymore. Nothing can be worse than this. I might as well join the Sea Org because maybe it will be better. Spoiler alert, it wasn't better, but I did, stop having to try and recruit people to staff at Valley.
And you were getting more money, so.
And I was getting rolling in the dough, raking in the Benjamins.
I mean, I remember when I was on staff in Philly, I wasn't full time at this point. I had a day job in the real world, but nights and weekends, I was on staff. I had a house, I had a car, I had a fiance, up at 8 o'clock in the morning, getting so little sleep that I'm literally falling asleep every day while driving from work to the org. And I'm framing it this way because I remember when I joined the Sea Org in LA, I was like, this is a freaking piece of cake compared to being on staff. You don't have to worry about anything at all, and it was less money though. It was less money. So, uh, okay. So then what happens after you join the Sea Org?
So after I joined the Sea Org, God, so I got married the day I routed into the Sea Org, specifically because I wanted to be able to share a room with my husband. And we had been together for like 3 years at that point. And so it was just like, we had essentially been living together. So we routed in and we got put on the waiting list for a room because the birthing is a nightmare. And so he went into training at ASHO. He eventually became the Power CS at ASHO. And I went into training to become a network and like go out to Orange County Org, which was about to grand open. So we were both in training separately. And then I did the first little baby version of what eventually became the training evolution that is now happening at Flag back in like 2012. Orange County opened, got sent out, was there doing like network stuff for 6 months, something. And then the order came down, just kidding. We're going to make LRH comms class 5 staff again. They're not going to be Sea Org anymore. So it was this whole evolution, this whole like every LRH comm on the planet has to be a Sea Org member. And so everyone's like running around, like trying to figure this out.
So let me stop you real quick.
Yeah.
So for those of you watching, the post LRH communicator is considered in a network. Describe for people, how would you describe the job of the LRH communicator? What did you do as the LRH communicator?
So the LRH communicator is quite literally supposed to be like the voice of L. Ron Hubbard in the organization. They are his personal representative on the ground. So the job is like 50% HR and 50% meaningless PR. You have to make sure that the LRH office is cleaned and like dusted every single day, and you have to like play LRH lectures for the staff and like make sure that everybody's going on study and like staying on source. And then you also have to like recruit people.
That was part of your job, to recruit people?
It is currently enforced. That is what LRH comms have to do.
Wow, that's weird.
Yeah, well, because everyone's so desperate to recruit anybody, LRH comm just gets lumped in with the rest of HCO. Like, you're part of HCO, so you better be like, either better be recruiting or you better be making them recruit.
So when they sent you to Orange County Org to be the LRH comm, I mean, is that now it sounds like you're having to recruit again. The same problem you're running into at Valley.
Literally my never-ending nightmare that I could not escape. My entire career in Scientology, I could not escape being forced to recruit people. And like every single time, no matter what, I would say, like, I will do whatever, just don't make me recruit people. Like, I'm a bad recruiter. I can't recruit. I can't lie to save my life. Like, don't do it. I'm bad at it. It's a bad idea. And because I had HCO quals, I just ended up being made a recruiter every time because nobody else had HCO quals.
Interesting. And for the viewers, HCO is Hubbard Communications Office. That is Division 1. That is HR of a Scientology org. And you have to have special qualifications, or really a lack of disqualifications, in order to be there. So what will usually end up happening is the people who have no disqualifications tend to be the people who also have the least experience, to be perfectly honest, right?
Yeah.
And so you have people in HR who, in some cases, are the newest, least experienced people. They haven't been in Scientology long enough to disqualify themselves.
Or it ends up being a bunch of kids. Like, it's more often.
That's what I mean.
Like
That's actually what I mean. Yeah.
Children.
Right. They haven't lived long enough to do anything that would disqualify them, which is very funny. Okay. So then you're in Orange County. What was that like, now being a Sea Org member in a Class 5 org as opposed to a Class 5 staff member in a Class 5 org? You're kind of in the real world, but you're a Sea Org member.
It was weird. It was especially weird because I went straight from being a staff member to being a Sea Org member in an org. So I didn't have any like experience of what it was like to work on a Sea Org base. And so
Mm.
it was very strange. Like I like eventually ended up getting sent back to the base after like a year and becoming extremely not wanting to be around anymore, saying that so that YouTube doesn't get mad at you. They were like, okay, you can go back to the base and like do something else for a while because you're not ready to like be out and be a network right now. And I was like, yeah, that's what I've been saying for the past year.
Wow. Okay, so then what happened?
So I skipped something. So it was like, okay, LRHCom's actually going to be, they're not going to be Sea Org anymore. So B, you have to recruit your replacements. And I was like, dope, hate that, but okay. And they were like, and you're going to be part of the INT mission that is there to like establish the org. So I just got like, swoop, now you're an INT missionaire. Okay, cool. And you're the missionaire in charge of recruitment. Haha, joke's on you. Yeah, super cool. So I was there for like another 6 months or so, and then finally they were just like, okay, you are clearly not cutting it. And also I had actually gone to my mission IC and I was like, hey, I want to myself. And she was like, number one, no, you don't. Number two, I'm going to pretend you didn't say that to me because it disqualifies you for things in the future. Like having those thoughts or intentions is an out qualification for future like promotions. And so I'm going to not report this and I'm going to pretend you didn't say that. And I'm going to send you back to the base and you're going to just like get over yourself. And I was like, okay, cool. As long as I don't have to stay here and keep trying to recruit people, it's fine with me.
Wow. Incredible. Yeah. Incredible. And also Scientology doesn't do anything to try to fix that. I mean, for lack of a better word,
No.
Because Scientology doesn't have the ability to do anything about that.
No, they just sec check you. I distinctly remember, this is a little off topic, but I distinctly remember being like 10, 12 and going to like a children's seminar at the Way to Happiness International thing in Glendale, like right after it opened. And this was a seminar with like just children. This was a seminar for children where some like Freedom Medal winner, whatever, Mary somebody was like explaining.
Mary Shuttleworth, I bet. Mary Shuttleworth?
I think it was Mary. She was explaining about like the antisocial personality and the social personality and like what PTS is. And like the thing that stuck with me that I remember still to this day was her saying that the only reason people themselves is because of their own overts and withholds.
Wow.
And so if you're feeling that way, it's because of something bad that you did that you're trying to escape from. So that was like, that was all I had. That was all I knew. And I'm sitting there like, I don't like, what bad thing did I do other than not recruit people? You know? So it was really rough. I was not having a good time. So we're now into like 2013. I get sent back to the base. I was pretty surprised that I wasn't in trouble at this point, actually. Like, I don't know why I wasn't in trouble, because normally if you like, scrub out of a mission, like you are scrubbing toilets. But I just got put back in the LC network. I was the deputy LC West US for a couple months, like just running, like sending telexes and doing like paperwork, and nobody was bothering me. And it was like
no lower conditions, no sec check, no OW write-up or anything like that?
Nothing. It was it was really weird. I was waiting for the other shoe to drop the entire time, but like nothing. And by this time, Eric was at Flag. My husband at the time, he was already at Flag. He got sent to Flag for training like a couple months after we joined, and he was at Flag for like 2-3 years. So he's off doing that. And so now we're into 2013, and then the Golden Age of Tech 2 evolution hits. And everybody's having to go to Flag and get trained, and like, it's massive. The entire base, like personnel reviews get done on the entire base. We stay up for like 3 days in a row just compiling like rosters on every single person on the base. Oh, thank you, Sean.
Let's very quickly explain what Golden Age of Tech 2 is. And also that there's this part of your story that very easily gets overlooked, which is you and your boyfriend join the Sea Org, you get married to join the Sea Org, you almost instantly get separated and don't see each other for years.
Yeah, we joined together. We had been like engaged for 3 years at this point. We got like legally married, routed into the Sea Org, finished like when you do the EPF, which is the introductory stuff you have to do when you become a Sea Org member. You are in separate rooms, like it's separated by gender, boys and girls, and so you don't really see each other. We both finished. We both got posted at different orgs. Like I got posted at the management org, he got posted at ASHO, which was ASHO Foundation at the time. And then like some strings got pulled because he was already like a flag trained grad 5, and so they were like, we're sending you back to flag, but you're like, we're going to VIP you a little bit in the meantime, like while we get you ready to go, just so that we like keep you happy. So some strings got pulled, and we got like some other couple got kicked out of their room so that we could live in their room for like 2 months. And then he got sent to flag, and he was in training for like at least 2 years, maybe 3 years. He was the one he was the one who sec checked Chris Shelton's girlfriend at the time and found out the whole thing that got Chris declared.
Girlfriend. Oh, you mean he did the sex check at PAC?
At flag. Nikki was at flag.
I don't know. I never knew Nikki.
Totally fine. It's a whole thing.
Oh.
But
wait, I knew Chris was in the Sea Org. I knew Chris to be married, not have a girlfriend.
So Chris was married. Chris left the Sea Org. Chris didn't leave the Sea Org by getting declared. He left the Sea Org and then went to Twin Cities.
Oh, I got it. You're talking about his girlfriend after he left the Sea Org.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That might be an interesting story
Yeah,
for later.
It's a whole thing.
Okay, so Golden Age of Tech 2 for everyone watching is when, for the second time, David Miscavige decided nobody had ever actually been trained as an auditor correctly before. And I don't know, maybe that's not an accurate description of Golden Age of Tech 2. That was Golden Age of Tech 1. Mm-hmm. Golden Age of Tech 2, David Miscavige was now changing so drastically how people would progress up the auditing side of the bridge that it required retraining all auditors in the world. Is that a good description?
Yeah, essentially.
How would you describe
it? So the way that it was presented and the way it was described is the reason that we don't have a training boom in Scientology, the big reason that we don't have a bunch of people all becoming auditors all the time is because it is too hard to become an auditor. It's too complicated and there are too many like arbitrary steps added. So instead, we're going to revamp and re-release everything. And also like the basics had come out and they did that whole thing, that whole research project where it's like, oh, we found all these things in the books that like weren't supposed to be there. Well, guess what? We found a bunch of things in the HCOBs that weren't supposed to be there. We found a bunch of things in like all of the training materials that we were using that weren't supposed to be there. And like we've recovered lost tech. And so we put it all together and we made it like super easy and super fast and like amazing to become an auditor. And so, yeah, it's just another excuse to have everybody pay all the money again and go through the whole thing again and like rehash the same thing again because there's nothing new.
Right. And never mind the fact that Miscavige is the one who personally and single-handedly made training too difficult and long in the first Golden Age of Tech evolution that happened in 1996. So never mind that.
Yeah, we're not
okay. So for you, you're now on this post back at the Continental Management Org in Los Angeles, and so Golden Age of Tech 2 is happening. And what does that mean for you? That means you're full-time wrapped up in trying to get personnel approved for full-time training and sent to flag.
Yeah, essentially, full-time, just like helping out, doing all the like there was just a lot of paperwork that had to happen as part of it, and so as kind of an auxiliary little paperwork person, I was just doing all that. And then they tried to like send me to flag to get trained, and I was like, absolutely not. I'd done that once before. I am not doing that again. And it was a whole thing. And they still
wanted to send you back though.
They still wanted to send me back. They were desperate. They were so desperate. They were like, please, you seem unutilized. And I was like, I'm telling Elsie West you SMU. She got real mad. And so that whole thing happened. Everybody like got to flag, the training evolution started. And then it was like, okay, actually we need the person who was the senior QualSec West US, they were like, we need her to do something else. So you're the senior QualSec West US now. And I was like, I hate this. This is like, don't make me do this. I really don't want to do this. And it was terrible. It was like the worst experience of my whole Scientology career was the 2 years I was the senior QualSec. It was miserable.
I got to explain this to the viewers. This is just a perfect example of how completely inefficient and absurd Scientology's entire management structure is. So you've already struggled at this point on every post they've put you on. Okay. Right?
Yeah, except the one that I was on, like that they were taking me off of, I was doing really good. My stats were going up. I was happy. I was like thriving.
Doing really good, but it didn't really require anything but paperwork.
Yeah, it was just paperwork. It was great.
Right. So for the people watching, Qual is Division 5 of a Scientology organization. And we mentioned earlier that Division 1 HCO has higher qualifications to be an HCO. Technically, so does Qual, sort of.
Yeah.
And Qual is responsible for quality control. It's essentially QC for the entire organization. It is supposed to be the organization that figures out how to fix anything and everything that's going wrong in the organization. And so when she says she's put on as the senior QualSec West US, you are then at that point responsible for quality control for the entire West US continent.
Yep.
Essentially. Yeah. And you're what, 19, 20, 21 at this point?
Yeah, I was maybe 21, 22.
Weren't even a trained auditor, right?
Oh no, not at all.
Not even a trained auditor. This is how scarce in Scientology their own resources are. They can't even find their own well-qualified staff to put on the own posts that they need them to go on. It's just absurd. Anyway, I could beat this to death. I don't want to. Okay, so you're the senior QualSec West US. What did your job mostly consist of for those 2 years?
Getting screamed at by CMO.
But like, what did screaming at you for not doing what? What are you supposed to be doing?
Mostly what the job consisted of was trying to get Class 5 orgs to man up their technical training core. So from a long distance via telex, which is like fancy encrypted emails, not allowed to pick up the phone and call, has to be over telex. Getting the people at the other end in various states and various time zones to go out and recruit people to join staff at their orgs, and then get those people through a bunch of like preliminary qualifications and training, and then get them approved to do full-time training at Flag or at ASHO or locally, and so it was like red tape on red tape on red tape on red tape, and all of it was right now. All of it was like, why don't you have 15 people joining the TTC this week?
Right.
And I'm just like, that is like, it's literally physically impossible to do all of that in 1 week unless you have a like well-oiled operating machine, which is not what you would call Scientology.
So you want to talk about too many chiefs and not enough Indians. So for the watchers, every Scientology organization has multiple people in that organization responsible for doing the recruiting, the recruiting, the posting, all this stuff. And yet you, as the senior QualSec West US, you're responsible for how many orgs? 20, 25, 30? How many orgs were in the West US?
I believe it was 32. And sometimes like it went back and forth whether I was overpack. Sometimes I was, sometimes I wasn't.
Okay. So you're being screamed at for why the people in those 32 orgs essentially aren't doing their jobs, but you're not even allowed to go there and help them do their jobs. The only thing you're allowed to do is send them emails telling them to do their jobs better.
Right. Occasionally they would physically send me out to like one org or another to like do a recruitment event. But like, obviously I can't be in 32 places at once. That's not possible.
Right. Okay. So then how did that all end up?
So the way that all ended up was I got progressively more and more miserable. Super flaky sleep schedule, super like not eating very much, random, like just whatever. And like my birth control failed and I got pregnant. And the first time I got pregnant, I like went to the medical officer. I took a pregnancy test. I was like, I don't know how this happened. I'm on the pill, but whatever, like lack of food, lack of sleep, all that stuff definitely affects it. And also, being on a wacky schedule, you're supposed to take the pill at the same time every day. It's not like super possible, right? So I went, did the thing, towed the line, didn't like cause a fuss immediately, like didn't even tell my husband, just said, okay.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't even tell him. I was just like, why bother? He had really,
Did they tell
wanted
you whether you should or shouldn't tell him? Like, it's weird. Like, everyone's going to go, how do you not tell your husband? Why would you not tell your husband?
I mean, we saw each other for like maybe an hour at night before we passed out. And sometimes we didn't even like, he was a case supervisor. So he was on a CS schedule, which meant he came home at like 3 or 4 in the morning every night. And I mostly was on like a daytime schedule. So I was asleep by the time he came home every day. Except for like once a week, we would be on management schedule and we would get to stay up until 5 a.m. sending emails. So I would see him like once a week. We were on different eating schedules, different sleeping schedules. We slept in the same room at that point, but that doesn't mean very much if you're never awake in the same room. And I also knew that like a big reason that he had not joined the Sea Org previously, like before I knew him, was that he really badly wanted kids. And I didn't want to cause him unnecessary pain when I knew that there wasn't like another option, So I was just like, I'm just going to take care of this. I'm just going to, be a good Sea Org member. I'll go do the thing. Like I'll do it right now. We'll do minimal disruption to my post. Like I'll just be off post for like a day or two and then it'll be fine. It'll all blow over.
Wow.
Yeah. So after it happened, after I got the pill, I did tell him at that point, I was just like, hey, just so you know, here's what happened and it's already over. Deal with that however you have to. I don't know what to tell you. So my best friend at the time, who also worked in the LC office with me, was getting married like the next week or 2 weekends from then. She had been the maid of honor in my wedding when I got married. We were super tight. I had been helping her plan this wedding for months. And after I got my schmishmortion, my boss was like, you can't go to this wedding. Even though it was on Sunday during like CSP time, I was not supposed to be on post during that time. She was like, it's gonna look weird if you are out sick for 3 days and then suddenly at a wedding, people are gonna know that something's up, and we can't have people knowing that we can't have people even guessing that you maybe got a schmishmortion. And
it doesn't even seem like that would be weird though. It'd be like, I was sick for 3 days. Now I feel better and I'm at the wedding.
It was literally just a vindictive punishment. That's literally all it was just being vindictive.
Wow.
And she was like, you can't go to this wedding. And I was just like, excuse me? And it was like, that was where I snapped. And I was just like, I hate it here. I need to get out. This was still like 2015. This was still like early 2015. So I didn't get out for another 3 years, but that was like where it started for me. It was like, something is super not right here. So
who was the LC West US?
That was Weiss. I don't know if she was.
She's like a little German lady.
Yeah, she's
Austrian or Swiss or whatever.
She's oh my God, why am I going blank? She's from the Netherlands.
Oh, okay.
But yes, she's
Same
the
thing.
person you're thinking of. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. God. And it's okay. So, but she had you felt that she could tell you what you could and could not do during your CSP time. Like you just weren't going to get on her bad side.
I mean, if I had gone, like she was going to be there. Oh. It's not even a matter of getting on her bad side. It's a matter of like how much trouble, like how much do I really feel like scrubbing pots,
Right.
So then I had to do lower conditions for the horrible, audacious offense of getting accidentally pregnant.
You didn't have to do lower conditions for being kicked off of the mission in Orange County, but you had to do lower conditions for getting accidentally pregnant.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
Yep. So I got through all that. I did my whole thing.
Hold on. You have to help me and the viewers understand this. Most people understand that in the Sea organization, you're not allowed to have kids.
Mhm.
But what's with the doing lower conditions for getting accidentally pregnant? Was it for having missed 3 days of post?
No, it was for getting it was because if you get pregnant, you're trying to blow the Sea Org.
Oh, you were in trouble for doing something that might have taken you out of the Sea Org.
And specifically, and also taken my husband out of the Sea Org because he was the only Golden Age of Tech 2 trained power CS that wasn't posted at flag at the time.
Oh. For doing something that would have potentially taken your husband out of the Sea Org, even though you took care of it without even putting that problem on his plate, you still got in trouble.
It gets worse.
Oh my God. Tell me what's next.
So I remain on post. I remain miserable. Nothing changes. Everything is bad. And then I purposefully stopped taking my birth control. And I'm like, fuck this. I'm actually going to have a kid now. You all can suck my... Anyway. Sorry. I'm trying to keep it PG. So I do get pregnant again. This is like a few months later. This is still within the same year. I keep it quiet as long as I can. I am, as it has been established, a very bad liar and cannot keep a secret. And I had horrendous morning sickness, like really, I couldn't keep anything down. I was sick. And so I finally had to like fess up. And I was like, okay, I don't know how this happened again. I'm really sorry. I promise, like I'll whatever. I'll toe the line and I'll go get another thing. And so I went and they gave me the pill and I threw the pill away when the doctor wasn't looking and went back to the base and continued having morning sickness, continued being pregnant, tried to hide it for another couple of weeks, was still sick, was still throwing up all over the place. Finally, after a couple of weeks, they sent me to the doctor again and the doctor was like, you're pregnant still. And I was like, oops, guess the pill didn't work. Still like didn't tell my husband any of this because I didn't need him snitching on me, basically. He also was someone who always really towed the line, and there was a pretty significantly non-zero chance that if he knew what I was doing, he would tattle.
So like when you told him after the first time, he didn't, did he say anything like?
He cried.
Because he would like to have a kid?
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you say that if you told him the second time he would tell, what do you mean exactly?
So if I had told him this, like, despite the fact that he really badly wanted kids, he also really loved being in the Sea Org, and he really loved being a CS and like doing his job. And he was a really fervent, true believer. Like he's still in the Sea Org. I left him when I left. He's not someone I would call like a great guy, but he was who I was with at the time. He was my partner at the time.
But when you say he would have told not like, hey, tell them so we can get out of here, but told them so they could handle you to get it taken care of.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. So like he would have told, his ethics officer or whatever what was going on. So I go back to the doctor. They're like, you're still pregnant. I come back. I tell my boss, I tell HCO, I'm just like, okay, well, I'm keeping it then because obviously it doesn't want to go anywhere. And at that point they were like, no. They took him out of my room, put him in the like general men's dorm, kept me in my room alone without him, fully isolated me, took me off post, changed my meal times so I wasn't with anybody. Like I was eating with the RPF during the RPF meal times. Put me on like, they couldn't do hard labor because anything that was like could potentially hurt a pregnancy. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. you can't make me do that. But they had me doing like filing. They had me doing like sweeping and like prepping stuff in the kitchen, like anything that wasn't like lifting and carrying and whatever. So they fully isolated me, put me into sec checking, put me into like, 5 hours a day sec checking, and then the rest of the time just isolated. And then while I was isolated, they would have people come periodically, like my friends or my coworkers or whatever would come to love bomb me and try to handle me to stay and try to convince me to stay. And
Tell me again what year this was?
2015. This was like towards the end of 2015.
Wow. And they were still doing that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Wow.
And so this went on for a couple weeks. I think I made it all the way to like 13 or 14 weeks along before I finally caved. And it was Julie your OES when you were at ASHO?
No. For me, it was Andrea Butterworth.
Okay. Julie replaced Andrea, I believe.
What's Julie's last name? Was she blonde?
McCloskey? No.
Julie what?
McCloskey.
I keep cutting you off. Say it again.
McCloskey. She's Mac McCloskey's wife.
I never knew her.
Yeah. I think we like just missed each other. We're like one generation after the other at PAC. Anyway, she was the one who finally like convinced me. And basically the way she convinced me was by giving me the whole spiel about how like Thetans don't reproduce and, how she actually had like a miscarriage while she was on post one time and didn't realize it until afterwards, and how hardcore that was of her. And like essentially that like and like giving examples of other Sea Org members who had left to have babies and how they like regretted it afterwards. She used Andrea Butterworth as an example of this, by the way. She talked real bad about Andrea Butterworth and Jamie and how they're like super unhappy now that they're not in the Sea Org. And like the same thing. And then basically brought it all back around to the fact that they had invested like all this time and money into my husband, and that he was like one of the only, like he was like one of 4 or 5 people on the planet at that point who was GAT2 Power CS trained. And they were like, if we lose him, then it's like basically the end of the world, and like ASHO will just crumble and die because we won't have anybody who's qualified to CS anymore. And so finally I was just like, okay, fine. Like, fine, I'll do it, I guess. I don't have a choice here. But, here's my conditions. Like, I don't want to have to do the Cat B, which is where they put you back through the EPF, the like introductory stuff over again to like rebrainwash you, which is what they're doing now at PAC instead of the RPF. Like, Anyway, I was like, I don't want to do the Cat B, and, I don't want to be the senior qual sec anymore. Like, just give me another post. Like, I've been begging for 2 years to not do this. And she was like, yeah, of course, all like lies. So I went, got the thing done, and then like the day after I had it done, senior HCO comes knocking on my door, time to go to the Cat B. And I was like, I am literally recovering from like a surgery here. Like, I was too far along to take the pill. Like, I had to, medically get it done. And I was just like, no, like, I'm in pain, I'm upset, I'm tired, like, no, you can go away, I'm not doing this. And by this time it was like right before the New Year's event, which is like the one big live event that happens in LA. And so they were like, okay, well, you can just do call-in for the New Year's event full time until you're like healed enough to do the Cat B. And then I like just ingratiated myself to the events unit enough and made myself indispensable enough that they had to wait until after the New Year's event to make me do the Cat B, because I was like, I'm running the Power FSM evolution now.
Wow. I have my own theory as to why Miscavige decided to stop assigning people to the RPF, and it has nothing to do with PR or legal liability. I suspect that he started to get really pissed off that people were spending years and years and years getting all that free auditing.
Oh my God. Maybe.
Seriously, I seriously think that's what it was. These out exchange mofos think they can just slack off and get all this auditing and do all this bridge on my dime. That sounds like something Miscavige would think.
It makes more sense than any other theory, honestly. Like, yeah. I fully believe that.
Okay, so you do the Cat B, which again for everyone, that's like just redoing the Sea Org boot camp.
Mhm.
And then okay, so before you were taken off and put onto the Cat B or put on the events column and then the Cat B, you were still in the LC West US office. Oh no, you were still I'm sorry, senior qualsec office or LC West US office?
Senior qual is under LC West US. It's
That's
all
right.
the same office.
Yeah. Okay. And so then after the Cat B, where did they send you?
So while I was on the Cat B, I had to finish my sec check. That was like the longest part, was finishing all my like confession, ethics stuff. So I finished all that and I was like ready to graduate. And then the EPFIC took me aside and said, "You're not allowed to graduate until you convince your husband to get a vasectomy. Because we don't trust you to not get pregnant again."
No.
Because what had happened was like maybe a month before, like this was all kind of happening simultaneously. This girl who was a fundraiser, Abby Douglas, she went out with Quinn Toffer. She was like his second in command. Abby Douglas married Davey Reitza, who was like a recruiter, and then she got pregnant, and then she got an abortion, and then she went and did the Cat B, and then she finished the Cat B and went and got pregnant again, and then they both left, and they're both public in Clearwater now. They have like 3 or 4 kids. But she had just done like the exact same sequence of events that I had done, but like a month earlier. And so they were just like, "We don't trust you. He has to get a vasectomy." And it was like, out of all of the horrible things that I had to do when I was in the Sea Org and like the things that I still feel guilty about, I think that is the worst thing that I have ever done. And to this day, I feel absolutely awful about it.
Because he really wanted kids. I mean, I guess these days you can get them reversed, right?
Yeah, you can get them reversed. I still feel terrible about it. Like,
was it a hard sell?
Yes. Yeah, it was a hard sell. I had to fully just be like, "They're not going to let me graduate until you do this." And he had to like go back and talk to Cosmo and like,
By the way, what was Cosmo's post at this point?
He was still a CS. He was a tech
Senior
CS.
Tech
He was not
CS.
the senior CS. He was a tech CS.
Who was the senior CS? Alan Grout?
Yes.
Yikes. When I was there, Alan Grout was the metering soup. So
yeah, he went to Flag. He stayed at Flag forever, and then he came back, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, Alan Grout."
He's a good-looking dude. Okay, so then wouldn't it be funny if your husband went and faked getting the vasectomy just like you faked taking that pill?
I know, right? No, he actually got it done. He had like some complications and he was in pain for a long time afterwards. It was not good. God. It was really bad.
Okay, so they let you finish the Cat B, and where do they send you after that?
So after that, they made me a supervisor in CTO, which is the staff training org. Like, so it's where the classroom is that the Sea Org members go on course and study. So it was like all internal and like no chance of me like messing up anything externally. And it was just like, contained and whatever. And so I finished the Cat B. I was like gung-ho again. I was really excited to be a Sea Org member. I was like on board, like, yeah. And they were like, "And you're getting a ComEv now."
Nice.
And the ComEv was for like trying to blow the Sea Org by having a child.
Oh my God. Again?
Yeah.
Oh my God. By the way, who was your EPFIC?
James Byrne was my first EPFIC.
Wait, for your Cat B?
No. So when I first joined the Sea Org, it was James Byrne, and he was absolutely insane.
Yeah, he is.
He was a nut. And then my second EPFIC is this French guy named Robin, who definitely showed up after you left.
So you didn't have to deal with Ben Monahan?
No, I didn't have to deal with Ben Monahan. I heard stories about Ben Monahan, but I did not have to deal with him.
I've promised myself that if I ever see Ben Monahan on the street at any time, no matter how many years have passed and no matter what the circumstances, I will punch him straight in the face.
Please do. He was never a particularly pleasant person. He's
one of the worst people I ever knew in the Sea Org.
I think he's at Bridge now, or he was.
Yeah. Okay, so you got a ComEv. So where do they send you after all this?
So
CTO, you're at CTO, but like after CTO.
Because they were like, "Great, get through." By that point I was through level 1 or level 2 GAT2. Like I had been doing training as a senior qual sec. So they were like, whatever, just do the pro soup course and get through that and you'll make you a soup. And I did. It was fast. And so I was souping for a little bit. And then this was when like the next evolution of the LA org like executive training program was happening. And so there was like CTO, and then there was just like the big empty part of Lebanon Hall, not where the main mess was, but like LA org was there at one point. It's the
hold on.
wing.
But doesn't Leb Hall just have, if you enter Leb Hall from LRH Way, isn't it the main mess on the left? It's the Asho Chapel straight ahead, and to the right is the elevator.
Right. So if you go through main mess, right?
Yeah.
And then out to where the elevators are for the birthing.
Yeah.
There's the two arms where the birthing is. And the first floor of those two arms, I think it was probably Incom when you were there.
Yes.
It was not Incom anymore. Part of it got turned into the call center for basics, and part of it got turned into like a massive outdoor trainee course room.
Oh, wow. Let me ask you a question here, not to derail, but on the same subject.
Yeah.
I remember hearing when all this stuff was in the planning stages that once they were going to turn LA org into the model ideal org, they were going to move ITO from the ILO over to PAC. Did any version of that ever end up happening?
This was a version of that.
Okay.
This was a version of that. I'm pretty like, yeah, like this was essentially ITO. Like it was very kind of fluid what it was actually called. Okay. But yeah, the supervisors who were supervising in that course room were like ITO soups, even though they were PAC staff. Okay. So I got pulled there. I got tagged like one day to go supervise there, and the supervisors in that course room were like, "Oh, we like you." One of those supervisors, by the way, is Barbara Tompkins,
who's related to Barbara and Foster, Sterling's mom.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So I worked with Barbara for like a year and a half, like very.
So I've never met her, but I interviewed Sterling last week. I haven't published it yet.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh. I don't know what she's up to now. I haven't seen her or talked to her since like 2016, 2017, but we worked together very closely for like a year and a half. Her and Veronica Biggs, who also has a declared son. Her son is the one who was the miner at Bridge who got his finger cut off by that machine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That it was kind of like, we're gonna, because Veronica was married to someone at Incom, and Barbara was married to Foster, so it was kind of like a holding tank for undesirables who aren't like that undesirable. So I got shoved over there, and so then it was like 3 of us supervising 125 students, 150 students all in one course room.
And these are trainees from orgs all over West US?
All over the world, international.
International? Oh, I heard about this.
Yeah, this was international.
I heard about this. I got someone who's actually going to send me photos they were on this evolution, and they have photos from it.
Really? Oh my God.
Yeah.
I wonder if it was one of my students. I learned Spanish, I learned Hungarian, I learned French. Like I learned word clearing commands in different languages because we had students who didn't speak English, and I had to do like meter checks.
And so this was, tell me again, which year at this point?
So this is now, I think 2015, like end of 2015, beginning of 2016. And I did that for about a year.
Interesting. And they got up to 120 trainees at a time?
It like right at the beginning of the evolution, right when it first happened, and it was like, everybody send everybody you can. Like the most people that could come at one time from all over the world was like, yeah, about 125 students. And then it very quickly dwindled as people graduated and like fired back. Where
did they birth 120 people?
They rented apartment buildings. They rented an apartment on Fountain. They rented an apartment. Like there were a bunch of different apartment buildings that they just rented out and had like shuttles.
Interesting.
Very similar. It was structured very similar to like a flag training evolution.
Interesting. Oh, so how did that go? Did you enjoy, relatively speaking, that year of supervising?
I did. Like we were technically PAC, but technically not. And so there was the only person who had any say over us was the CTO, who was Matt Wolf at the time. And he was like pretty chill. honestly. Like he just kind of was like, do your jobs as long as the stats go up. Like, I don't care what you do.
At this point, had they already created the position of like CO pack base? Like, because Jason Hemphill, you mentioned him earlier, he ended up becoming the CO of the pack base. Were you there when that occurred?
This was right in that time period. It was like a lot of things all happening kind of at the same time.
Yeah, okay.
So I don't remember if he already was made the CO pack base by this point, but it was that time period.
Okay. All right.
So,
so then what happens? How do you move on from there?
So did that for a while and I was good at it. Like I'm a good supervisor. I'm a good teacher. I enjoy teaching people things. And like in doing so and like consistently being good at my job, and not being in trouble for like a whole year, caught Jason Hemphill's eye and he was like, we need more missionaires. We need people to go out to like the ideal orgs that have already opened. And by this time I had finished through class 4. So I was pro soup class 4 and I was like on my class 4 internship. And he was like, I want you to be a tech missionaire. I'm going to send you out to orgs. Like when an ideal org opens up, there's a group of Sea Org members that goes to that org to make sure that like the stats go up basically. And like, you know, an establishment mission, it's a stat push mission. It's you make sure that the stats continue to rise. And like you keep recruiting people and whatever. So I was like, this is a bad idea. Don't want to do this. You should not send me out. I am a crazy person. If I am not on the base and if I am not constantly watched, I will go cuckoo. And he was like, I don't care. I'm sending you out. And so I was like, you were warned. All right.
Wow.
And then they tried to send me to Valley Org, and I was like, I will.
Oh my God.
Not do that.
Oh
So they sent me to San Diego instead. And
at least they sent you somewhere nice.
Yeah, San Diego was gorgeous. I really like. I am glad that I got to at least like visit San Diego briefly, even though there's not a whole lot of like tourism occurring there.
Yeah.
It was a very nice city. So I was in San Diego for 6 months or so, 8 months, whatever. I was in San Diego for a little while. It was fine. It was nice. It was very stressful. I developed some ulcers and started throwing up blood at one point, and they were like, that's not great. You should stop doing that. And so then they sent me to Mountain View. And when they sent me to Mountain View, they were like, you're not going to be a tech missionary anymore. You're going to be a recruiter. And I was like, have we not like learned this lesson already? Like wow. How? Anyway, but whatever. So then I was in Mountain View and I stayed in Mountain View for like a year and a half. And so by that point, like I was part of the Man Up mission for Mountain View, helping recruit people for like months and months and months. And then the org opened and it went ideal. And then they were like, you're going to stay here and be the tech missionaire now. And I was like, I've literally not seen my husband in a year and a half. And they were like, we don't care. Sucks to suck it up. And I was like, cool beans. And then I stayed there for like another year-ish after the grand opening. And then finally, like at a certain point, I was just like, I am either going to myself or I'm going to escape. And one of these things has got to be a better option. So let's try escaping first, because I can always go with plan B if I have to. Glad I didn't have to. I'm doing much better now, as you can see. But I did then escape in October of 2018 from Mountain View.
That's right. And it wasn't long after that. So wait, if I get it, I don't want to tell your story for you, but just let me know if I've got the right memory of this. You did have a cell phone while you were in Valley or Mountain View at this point. I forget.
Mountain View. So the missionaries all get like cell phones issued to them from like ILO that have trackers and whatever on them that they can see everything you do. You can't go on the internet. It's like purely for calling and texting, and they can see it. You can read all your messages.
But somehow you ended up on Reddit.
Yes. So when I was in Mountain View and I was on this Man Up mission, I was in charge of logistics, which means I was the person who called public and fundraised money for like plane flights and made sure that there was like a bed for a new recruit to sleep in and like help people get like day jobs and whatever. So I was doing all that. So I like really desperately needed to have a cell phone, and I dropped my phone in the toilet. Total accident, not intentional. Dropped my phone in the toilet. It fully died. Stopped working. Brick. Called ILO. I was like, hey, I need a new cell phone. They were like, okay, send us your old cell phone and we'll send you a new cell phone. It'll take like 2 weeks. And I was like, are you kidding? 2 weeks? Absolutely not. But I didn't tell them that. I was like, okay, cool. Yes, sir. Click. And then I went to a staff member who sold cell phones in his spare time, like as his day job. And I was like, hey, Mike, can you hook me up with a cell phone? I very desperately need it. And I also very desperately need you to not ask any questions. And he was like, yes, sir. So he did. He gave me a cell phone. And like, it was not with any ill intent. I was not at this point intending to escape. I was truly just like, I need a cell phone to do my job. And like, I don't have another way of doing this. So took the cell phone to T-Mobile, got my like phone number transferred over, but it's an unlocked cell phone. There's no tracker on it. There's full internet access. There's, nobody, they obviously get the phone bill so they can see what phone numbers I'm calling, but they can't see if I'm on like, downloading apps or going on Reddit or whatever. And so as like a form of escapism, I started just like sneaking off to the bathroom for like 10 minutes at a time, go on Reddit, like scroll a little bit, stress relief. Like we're working like 15, 20-hour days a lot of the time, and there is very little stress relief. So whatever. So I had this habit of just like going on Reddit, and I was just like, reading memes, downloading GIFs, like being on the internet. I was like maybe 26, 27, like pretty normal stuff. And so I had this same cell phone all for the next like year through
Right.
the idea.
Even after you got your new org phone, you still had this other phone.
I never got a new org phone because I never sent the old one back. Because I was just like, if I never send the old one back, they will not twig to the fact that I am not using the old phone. And I will not get in trouble for having this, contraband phone for like 2 weeks. I learned my lesson.
But then it doesn't even occur to them that you're not having any activity on your phone bill.
It's the same phone bill. It's the same carrier. It's the same phone number. Like I transferred the SIM card over.
Oh, I get it.
So I was just like, whatever. Okay. What they don't know won't hurt them.
Jog my memory. Did you get in touch with the Aftermath Foundation before you blew or after you blew?
After I blew. I didn't know about the Aftermath Foundation until after I got to Minnesota.
Right. And was it you who contacted us or someone you'd made friends with who contacted us letting us know about you first?
I think Chris might have contacted you because I was in the Sea Org with Chris. I knew Chris for years. Like even when I was on staff at Valley, Chris would sometimes come down. And so I like kind of casually knew him as a person for a long time. And then because my husband had been the one to like essentially get Chris declared, I knew Chris was declared. And I also knew like Chris's last known whereabouts was Minnesota. And so I was like, I had been here for like maybe 2 days and I was like, maybe if I contact him, he can help me because I don't know what I'm doing.
So tell everyone how you came to escape and how you came to go to Minnesota.
Okay, so I had been like going on Reddit and like kind of making friends with randos for a little while at this point. It was like, it was fun. It was nice, like talking to strangers. Like there's various message boards on Reddit where you can like talk to people and just like connect over shared interests. And so I had like made a couple of like random friends throughout the US. And I started talking to this guy who we hit it off. We clicked like super well. And normally I did not tell these people that I was a Scientologist. And normally I just like kept that to myself, kept it a secret. But we were getting towards the end of the mission and there was not like a definite return date yet, but there was like rumblings. It was like, get ready, sometime in the next couple of weeks or sometime in the next couple of months, we're going to end the mission and you're going to come back to pack. And at the end of any mission, whether it is successful or unsuccessful, the missionaries get sec checked. And I was like, if I get sec checked, I am triple screwed. And I will lose every bit of freedom that I have had over the past 2 years of like, not having somebody looking over my shoulder all the time, being able to like go out to eat instead of having to eat like cafeteria food, you know, I have like a lot of dietary issues. And so when I was at PAC, I was literally surviving on just like trail mix basically. And it was a real like problem for me nutritionally. And so I was like, if I go back there, like I'm just gonna die. Like that's it. I can't go back there. So this guy that I was talking to, I was like, hey, I gotta tell you something. I'm in the Sea Org. I'm a Scientologist. And he was like, are you kidding me? Turns out that this guy was like a computer security expert who had been involved with Anonymous. And so he knew about Scientology and he had done some like protest stuff in the past. He was never a Scientologist, but he was very familiar. And because he was a computer security expert, he was like, I can help. Like, I was like, will you help me escape? Will you help me get out of here? I know we've been talking for literally like 24 hours, 48 hours, and this is absolutely insane. But also my life kind of depends on it. So if you can help me, that would be super tight. And so he was like, I'm going to talk to my therapist and call you back. Which is great. That's like an amazing answer. So he did. He like talked to some friends. He talked to his therapist. He was like, okay, I am relatively certain that you're not scamming me, and also not sure how this could be a scam. So I'm going to say yes, and I will help you. And there's some conditions attached. So he had me go. This was on like a Wednesday, I want to say, or a Tuesday. And he was like, okay, so as soon as you can, at a time where you will not be missed, go to like a CVS or a Walgreens and get a prepaid credit card for, you know, however much you need to book a flight. With that prepaid card from like not inside the org, from a different like network somewhere else, book a flight. You like make a burner email. Do not ever access this burner email on your org, you know, in the org or anything like that. But just like use that and get this flight booked for, you know, as soon as you can. So I booked a flight for like Saturday morning, 5 a.m. or Friday morning, 5 a.m., whatever. It's been a couple years. The actual like specifics are getting hazy. So I did. I booked the flight. I had been kind of working the nerve up to run away for a couple of months. So I had like previously purchased like a travel backpack from Amazon. So I, you know, waited until the night before. I stuffed everything I could fit into the travel backpack and like one carry-on suitcase. And I had to leave some stuff behind that just like wouldn't fit. But, you know, all my clothes and like any personal items that I could fit went into those two bags. At like so the setup for the mission was we had an apartment, like we were renting an apartment in San Jose, and at this point it was just me and the mission IC, and the mission IC was a dude, so he had his own room and I had my own room with like locking doors, and we had a routine established. Jason Gagan was the mission IC. I don't know if you know Jason, but he's elsewhere now. So he had a routine where he would go to the gym like every, you know, Friday night or every Thursday night, whatever night it was, like he would go for like 3 hours to the gym to just like work off the week.
I'm not sure he was just going to the gym if he was gone for 3 hours.
I hope he was having fun. He was a good dude. I liked Jason. You know, ideally he was having fun somewhere. But he would go for a while to the gym and he would just be gone. And I had established a routine where I had insomnia. I was up super late. My light would be on, my door would be locked. Like, yeah, that was just normal. So I waited for him to leave, like waited an extra half hour to make sure he wasn't going to come back, called an Uber, like skedaddled out of there.
So hold on. You guys had your own locking rooms in the same apartment, or you had different apartments?
No, same apartment.
I got it. Okay, right.
Same apartment. You know, waited, called an Uber, went to the airport. And by the time I got to the airport, it was like 1 a.m. And so all the security gates were closed. I couldn't get into past security. And so I had to wait from like 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. or whatever. Like there was a chunk of time there that I had to just be awake in the like visitor lounge thing, terrified that like he would check and find that I wasn't there. And you know, then the blow drill would go into motion and everyone would come to the airport because the San Jose airport is right there. That's an obvious thing. And then they would find me and then they would drag me back and that would be the end of that. And there is no way that I'm lying my way out of this. Like there is no cover story here. everything up to this point, there's a cover story for. Everything up to this point, I can like kind of weasel my way out of. Sitting at the airport with my bags in like civvies, no, it's over, right? And so stayed up the whole time, did not get a wink of sleep. I had to, like, additional side note, previous to this, I did call like a loan shark place, and I got like this horrifying loan shark loan for like $4,000 to have the money to be able to like buy a plane ticket and get out of there, because I didn't have any credit and I didn't have any savings, because you don't have money when you're in the Sea Org. So anyway, thankfully, nobody came for me. Nobody noticed. Gates opened, went through security. As soon as I got through security, I was like, oh my God, like, I'm free. Oh my God, like, they're not going to get through security. And even if they have somebody somehow waiting for me at the Twin Cities airport, like, I'll kick, I'll scream, I'll call the police. I don't give a shit. Like, I'm free. So got on the plane. There was a connecting flight in like Denver or something. So when I got off that first connecting flight, I turned my phone on and I had like 75 missed calls, 30 text messages, emails from my mom, emails from my husband, emails from my little brother. Like, everyone was going nuts. And like, a lot of them were, you know, what happened? Where are you? What's happening? And then some of them were like, oh, hey, very casually, I can't find this thing. Can you just like real quick give me a call so I can find it? I was like, you're not slick. I know what you're doing. Yeah. So made it to the cities, made it to Twin Cities. Got an Uber to this guy's apartment. He was like, okay, so I'm going to write you a room here. Like, you need to pay a deposit up front, first and last month. Like, I had to give him a bunch of money, basically. And he was like, you know, it's going to cost you money. You have to get into therapy as soon as humanly possible. And you have to get a job. Like, you can have a weekend, you can have a couple days to just like chill. But then like come Monday, you need to start looking for a job. You can't be like lying around feeling sorry for yourself, which is very cold, but also like I did go get a job pretty immediately. So it worked out. You know, he's like, again, not somebody that I'm currently in contact with and not a great dude in the end, but he did me a real solid getting me out there, and like his hit the ground running steps like did well by me. So that's what I did.
And okay, so then you get to Minnesota. How long before you get in touch or you email Chris Shelton?
Couple days. Okay. So like I got there, and like the first thing I did once I got there, after like unpacking a little bit, he was like, do you want to watch the South Park episode? And I was like, yeah. Because I'd never seen it. I'd heard about it for years. I had literally, when I was at Flag as an outdoor trainee, my dad called me and he was like, hey, I just saw this episode of South Park and I'm really worried about it. And then I had to sign like an NDA that I wouldn't talk about the episode of South Park to anyone at like age 16.
What did you think when you saw it?
It was very funny. Like, they got a bunch of stuff right. Like, there's a couple of like little technical details that bother me as somebody who is like, there is a funnier way you could have done this without getting it wrong, but mostly it's very good.
Do you remember like what the detail was that was wrong?
God, it's been years. I just watched it the one time in like 2018. It was like Thetan levels. I was like, Thetan level doesn't mean anything.
Right. Yeah, measures as Thetan levels. Right.
Yeah, I'm like, that's like, there's so
or
many.
no one's ever read on the e-meter. No one's ever had these levels on the e-meter before, right? Like, that's not.
Yeah, it's like that's not a thing. But like, I get it. You gotta
fit into a 25-minute show, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's right. So then Chris then refers you to the Aftermath Foundation. I remember we paid off that high interest loan, right?
Yes. So the Aftermath Foundation absolutely saved me, because I moved from California to Minnesota at the end of October. And for anybody who is not familiar with the Midwest and the weather patterns in California versus Minnesota, and me showing up with nothing but like the clothes on my back and a couple of, pairs of jeans and t-shirts, I would have quite literally frozen to death. So the Aftermath Foundation had me, do the whole application and everything. And pretty rapidly, like, you paid off the high interest loan, so I didn't have to worry about that. You gave me some money so that I could like buy winter clothes, like get a good winter coat, get some winter boots, like have necessities. while I was like waiting for my first paycheck. And you also helped me put like a down payment on a car so that I could get to and from work. So you really, really set me up.
Right. That's right. We've helped a lot of people since then. So I sometimes, and the stories sometimes are so similar. It's hard to keep track of what was what.
I still have that car. It's a very good car.
It was a Toyota, right?
It is a Ford Focus 2018.
It's a Ford Focus. Okay.
Yeah.
Didn't your brother come and show up at your apartment building in Minnesota because you took your laptop with you that had tracking software on it?
Mm-hmm.
Scientology knew what building you were in, but not which room.
Yep, that's correct. He went in, he got into the building while I was at work, and he went from door to door knocking, pretending that he was like a pizza delivery man looking for me, and got the cops called on him. And then my roommate was like, what the heck? And so then I like called Chris, all super panicked. And then it was like radio silence for a couple days. And then as I was like getting home from like being dropped off at home after spending the night at someone's house at like 5 a.m., I'm like walking up to my door and he comes just dashing, sprinting up from the parking lot. Some poor dude is like in his truck back here after having dropped me off as I'm like walking up going like, what is happening? He like tackle hugs me, like grabs me, my brother, who he did wrestling in high school. Like he went to state. He's like a hefty dude.
So it probably looked like you were being assaulted.
Definitely looked like I was being assaulted. To be super clear, it was a hug. He was not intending to harm me, and I don't think he was intending to physically drag me anywhere. He was like sobbing. He was very upset. And he was like, what's happening? What are you doing? I don't understand. Like, this isn't you. Please come back. Like he was very genuinely upset. And I was just like, I was so raw and like had only been out for 2 weeks, maybe at this point, I think a little less. And I just was like, I can't talk to you. Like, get off me. Do not touch me. Like, step away from me. I'm going to call the cops on you if you don't leave right now. And he was like, what are you saying? Like, what are you even talking about? And I was just like, you're trespassing. I did not invite you here. I did not tell you where I am. Like, you need to leave. You need to leave right now. And he was just like, couldn't understand what I was saying. And in his confusion, I like unlocked the door, slipped inside, locked it behind me, called the cops. Property. That was the last time I ever saw him.
It's kind of amazing to consider that in his like cult programming mindset, he's probably at that point completely oblivious to how horrible it looks that he has participated in tracking you down, hunting you down across state lines, and all he expected you to be was grateful to see him.
Oh yeah, he was shocked. He was absolutely startled and shocked and was just like, couldn't understand why I wasn't a Scientologist anymore. I said that. I was like, I am no longer a Scientologist. I don't want to be part of Scientology anymore. You are like, you need to go away. You need to leave me alone. And he was just like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean you're not a Scientologist anymore? Like, you're talking crazy.
Yeah. Well, and for the benefit of the viewers here, also, it's not like your brother just as an act of kindness, as a family member, was like, I'm going to go get her. Your brother is a Scientology staff member. So, and not a Sea Org member, a staff member. So technically he's way junior on the totem pole compared to what you were at that time. So it's really Scientology sitting there going, what's the best chance we have to get her back? Oh, I know. Send the brother. Because the brother was what? He worked at the Orange County Org as a staff member.
Yeah, he was the ethics officer at the Orange County Org.
So it's not like he was just going for his sister. Scientology sent him as the best possible way to emotionally manipulate her into coming back.
Very like there was somebody else in the car that was in the parking lot. I never found out who that was. Very likely it was another like Sea Org member, a senior HCO or OSA staff member.
Right. Oh yeah, they're not letting him go on his own. They might lose 2 people.
Right. Exactly.
So you do call the police and they do show up. Do they actually talk to him?
Yeah, there's a report filed.
And they said something like, if I recall correctly, it was almost like, do you realize you've just come across state lines to try to like, do you realize what this is?
They were like, do you understand that you're trespassing? And he was just like, he didn't get it. He was very, I mean, he's a golden retriever. He's a sweet kid. He's like, I guess he's 30 now, so he's not a kid anymore. But he was like, it was a real sweet golden retriever type kid, you know? So he was just doing what he was told and what he thought was right. And he was just like, that's, you know, that's my sister. I'm just trying to like see my sister. And they were like, you are in trouble. Like, you need to go. You need to leave. And he left. He left when they told him to leave. But he super didn't get it.
Wow. Did anyone ever try to contact you from Scientology after that?
Nope. Radio silence.
Yeah.
I reached out to my mom in like January of 2019. So this incident with my brother would have been like early November of 2018. Reached out to my mom, sent her, you know, a text message from somebody else's phone, so she didn't have my number, in January of 2019, just being like, hey, I'm alive, I'm doing well, I just wanted you to know, like, I miss you. And she was basically like, why are you texting me? And I was like, well, you're my mom and I love you and I miss you and like I want to have you in my life. And she was like, well, then come back and route out properly. I was like, I'm not going to do that. You know, I'm not a Scientologist anymore, but I respect your religion. I'm not going to talk smack about your religion and like all, you know, all toe the line and whatever, but I'm not going to come back and route out. And she was like, then you don't have a mom anymore.
Is that what she said?
Yeah, straight up. She's cold.
Wow. Yeah. So even, I mean, not to cast aspersions on your brother, because I'm sure he felt like his intentions were good, but when it really comes down to it, it's, they wanted you to stay in Scientology. They didn't want you to just be happy and be yourself. And, you know, what they wanted was what was best for Scientology.
Correct.
Yeah. Unbelievable. So your brother never tried to contact you after that either?
Nope.
Yeah. So are you in touch with any of your family members? Are any of them out of Scientology?
So the only people who were ever in Scientology was like our little family unit. It was my mom, my brother, my stepdad, and me. I'm not in contact with any of them. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of point in trying at this point. Like, I don't really have a way to get any intel on them, which has been a little bit nerve-wracking, especially like when COVID was super big. It was like they might die and I just like won't know it. Nobody's gonna tell me. But as far as I know, none of them did, which is good. That's a plus. Other than that, like I do have some family members who are like extended family, second cousins, third cousins, whatever, who were never in Scientology. And, you know, I'm Facebook friends with them and I have visited some of them. I've contacted some of them and we're like kind of in touch a little bit. But like nobody really close.
Interesting. And do any of them, are you in touch with any family members who are also in touch with your Scientologist family members?
Kind of. Like, so the problem is that my family members who have never been Scientologists also don't know like what the landmines are that they shouldn't say. And so like my great uncle who I got in contact with and, you know, his family and my second cousins and whatever, you know, I got in touch with them and I was like talking to them and I was reconnecting. And then he was like, yeah, I sent out like a group email to everyone and you and your mom were both in the same email, like on the CC line. And I was like, oh, she's not ever going to talk to you again because she knows you're talking to me. So, you know, lost that opportunity. So there's some other family members who I'm in touch with who are like kind of nominally in touch with her. She has never been super in touch with anybody. Like she disconnected from her own parents a long time ago because they were like, Scientology's a cult. And she was like, bye.
Wow.
So, you know, if you even get a whiff, there goes that opening.
Did you find it hard to reintroduce yourself or reassimilate into the real world after all those years in the Sea Org?
In some ways, yeah. In some ways it was very easy getting to have like a weekend and being able to like clock out and go home at the end of the day and like watch TV, eat whatever I want. To a degree, I'm in my 30s. Toms are my friend now, but you know, like there's a lot of things that are a lot easier than being in the Sea Org. I for a long time I would have panic attacks when I would go to the grocery store, just because it was like so many options, so many options, and that were never available to me before, and like trying to figure out how to buy groceries was like a really intensely upsetting process for a long time. Um, you know, there's like PTSD. I have a lot of nightmares still. They're less now. I will say, since I started watching your channel more regularly, the nightmares have been more regular, but it is it's worth it. It's worth it. I want to see Scientology crumble in real time. I can deal with some nightmares. But like, at first it was like nightmares like really devastating nightmares every single night. I am very lucky that I like met some really, really cool people who are very understanding, and very lovely, and just kind of like adopted me into their like found family friendship group pretty early on, like within the first year or two of being here. And so I have like a really, really good support network now, that I'm super thankful for, and like made it a lot easier to figure out how to be a people. There
Interesting.
was about first year or two, where I would constantly be having to side check with somebody like, hey, is this a normal thing, or is this a Scientology thing? Is this a normal word, or is this a Scientology word?
How about work environment? Like, how have you found it adjusting to a normal world work environment as opposed to the insane high pressure, everything is always an emergency, everything is always has to be done yesterday environment of the Sea Org, these artificial emergencies?
Yeah, I appreciate it a lot. I really enjoy not being screamed at all the time. That's a bonus. I So I work like a 9 to 5 day job, and then I also work a part-time job doing social media management, and then I have my own business. So I am still very much a workaholic, and I don't ever really know how to turn off. Sometimes, like, in some ways that's good because I get a lot done and I am very like active and productive, and I like do a lot of things. In some ways that's not great because I really can't turn off, and I really like struggle to be able to find any kind of work-life balance, and like have any kind of like rest or significant periods of relaxation without getting anxious about like all the work I should be doing, you know?
Right.
Any kind of meetings, like anytime anyone ever wants to have a meeting with me for anything, it's like an instant flashback, like panic attack time, you know? I did Con NCC for years, 2 years of Chantel O'Meara screaming in my face.
Mm. Is that Chantal Mooney's new name or maiden name or
Yes, that's
whatever?
Chantel Moody's new name. She's one of the ones I celebrated when I heard she got busted.
Yeah, she's one of those people who really became a horrible, horrible person. Where'd she get busted down to? The dish? Is she washing dishes?
Dishwasher at ILO, and now I think she's an ITO soup.
Couldn't happen to a better person. Yeah. Do you find it hard? What about like the Sea Org temper? The screaming. Were you never a screamer in the Sea Org?
I was never a screamer. I've never been a screamer. Much like to my detriment, because if you are a screamer, then the people above you who are screamers look at you and you're like, okay, well, at least you're trying. Like, at least you're doing the right thing. Like, you're passing it on down. And so you are less of a target if you make other people the target. And I'm just not that kind of person. Like, it takes so much to get me like actually angry. And I just can't bring myself to like do that to people. So I would be a target a lot of the time because I would refuse to, punish other people or like make other people's lives miserable. And so instead, like, I would kind of be the target.
Well, that's probably for the better.
Yeah.
That's probably for the better.
Yeah.
Not if you're a Sea Org member, but now that you're in the real world.
Yeah, no, I never had to deal with the temper. I do definitely still have to like watch my mouth, like the Sea Org filthy mouth, like cussing every third or fourth word. That gets me in trouble sometimes. Like, I'm still trying to shake that habit.
It's true. I'll tell you, it wasn't until I started to try to clean it up for YouTube that like it's actually the only thing that got me to stop swearing so much.
Yep. Yep. Daddy
I mean,
YouTube.
really? Okay, so then they didn't try to send you like a freeloader debt or an SP declare or anything like that. It was like, all right, she's gone, let her go.
I want my SP declare so bad, and they won't give it to me. They won't even tell me if I'm declared. Like, I must be declared. Not only did I blow, I falsified the tech stats at Mountain View for like a year after grand opening.
How do you
VSD.
falsify the tech stats?
Yeah, I like, that was the other thing I was doing, is because like the stats have to go up, the stats have to go up, the stats have to go up. And at a certain point, like the stat push isn't working anymore and you have to just start falsifying things. And so I was like falsifying the WADAs, I was falsifying the VSD. I know you're gonna have to explain this, but like I was falsifying all the main tech stats like extremely. And they like the OES found out, like he figured me out the day before my flight.
But how do you, as a missionaire, falsify the stats for the org?
Because I was the one doing stat ev.
You were sending the stats in to senior HCO or whatever.
Yeah, because when I was in HCO at Valley Org back in the day, I did stat ev. I ran stat ev for the org. So I had, by the time I got to Mountain View, I had like almost a decade of experience running stat ev. And so, and like nobody else in the org knew how to do stat ev. And so I was just the one literally running stat ev for like a year and a half. And so
let's tell the viewers about this, because it's one of the most hilarious things about Scientology is L. Ron Hubbard decided that the Scientology week would end Thursday at 2 p.m. Doesn't end Friday night, doesn't end Sunday night. It ends Thursday at 2 p.m. So at precisely 2 p.m., all the Scientology orgs in the world are frantically collecting up all of the numbers for the week to report them up to management. And StatEv is short for stat evolution, the evolution of getting all the stats reported. How quickly are stats expected to be reported? Like it's a huge flap if they're not in by like 5 p.m., right? Or like,
oh, it's a flap if they're not in by 3 p.m. Like there's the main stats have to be in by 3, and then there's like some other reporting that has to be in by 4.
Yeah.
And then a bunch of queries come down because they all go up and all the managers look at them and they go, that looks wrong. Can you call the org and ask them what's the deal? Can you like side check this and tell me if it's really correct? And so you have to like hang out until 5 or 6 and just like answer questions.
So the exec structure at the org is operating off of one set of stats, and you've sent to management a completely different set of stats.
No, I falsified it for the whole org. I falsified it for everything. I was being like the DTS.
But aren't they looking at their own stat graphs? That's what I'm not getting.
So the way that it worked was, okay, I'm gonna explain the VSD stat push to you.
And VSD, everybody, is value of services delivered. So if somebody finishes a course, VSD is how many dollars was the course they finished worth.
Right. And this also was for auditing. So auditing gets paid for in packages. You can buy one intensive at a time. You can buy a bunch of intensive at a time. There's a sliding scale. So technically, if you go one at a time, the VSD is higher for, the intensive you finished. Yeah. Additionally, there's a gazillion PC folders in PC folder storage from people who are no longer on lines, but maybe like didn't finish the last hour and a half.
Would you go get an intensive finished with admin?
Yep, folder work.
Yeah, see, technically that's legit. Technically, that's legit. You can drive up the Incos with that too.
Correct. You are correct. So that is what we did. So it was like an evolution. Every, Tuesday, we would go into folder storage and like search through the folders and find like 3 or 4 folders. And if you found really old ones, they were at the old prices of like $5,000 an intensive. You're golden, baby. So we were doing that with the VSD.
That's legit. That's creative accounting right there. That's good stuff.
I know. So we were doing that with the VSD, and then it got to a point where it was like I was a trained class 4. I finished my class 4 internship while I was in the org. So I was a permanent class 4. So I got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm going to just do the folder work on these folders while you guys are doing whatever. And so creative accounting, inventing different things, whatever, like no one's going to check. No one's going to go check this intensive from 14 years ago. I'm a Sea
Hey,
Org member. I'm a Sea Org
that's the
member.
kind of shit. That's how orgs go St. Hill size is with that kind of creative shit, to be perfectly honest.
Exactly correct.
Yeah.
And then so it was a little harder with the WADAs, with the well done auditing hours. But what I started doing was just very slowly adding like 15 extra minutes of admin here, 10 extra minutes in session there to and spreading it out among the auditors. And so the reason I got caught and the reason that he twigged to me was because it did get to a point where by that point it was like months into this and I was just like, there's no way out. Like I can't report the real stats. The real stats are like 20 hours lower than what's actually happening here. And one of the auditors was like, hey, I got this bonus in my staff pay, but I didn't make my 25 hours this week. What's the deal? And so then he came to me and he was like, hey, can you just he was very polite about it too. He didn't like outright accuse me. He was just like, I'm sure it was just like a mistake in like addition or whatever, but can you check into this and just see? And I was like, yeah, you know what? Like, give me the night. I'll go through everything and I'll check it out. And like, I'm sure I just made a mistake. It's totally fine. He was like, okay, yeah, I'm sure you just made a mistake. It's totally fine. And we were both like, he knows, and I know he knows, and he knows, I know he knows. And we're just like kind of delaying the inevitable here. Because he was also a buddy of mine. Like we were friends. I really liked him. And we were tight. And so it was just like, I don't want this to happen. We're going to delay it as long as possible. Thank God. Like, thank you, Mike Feeney, for not ratting me out immediately.
He couldn't just take his bonus and keep his mouth shut.
Literally, like, please. Anyway, so yeah, I deleted all the files. I trashed the stats, made it like very difficult for them to figure out what I was doing, and I bounced.
Well, that gives Scientology the perfect explanation to tell everybody for why you blew.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, I must be declared. Like there's got to be an SP declare somewhere, and they won't give it to me, and I'm mad about it.
Have I told you Scientology has never informed me that I'm declared? I never got a phone call, a letter, a text, nothing. I have literally never been contacted by anybody at Scientology telling me that I'm declared, much less sending me a copy of something. So don't hold your breath.
Oh, I'm not. Early on when I was here, I actually went into the Twin Cities org just to like ruffle some feathers because they had a command team and I knew some of the people that were there and like I personally knew some of the people there. And so I just like wandered in and I was like, hey, I want to see my SP declare. And they were like, called the DSA and they were like, go wait in this like conference room, get out of reception.
Did they already know that you were there or about you or like?
The DSA did. I don't think the staff did. They were like very confused to see me there.
Wow. So you wound up in Minnesota for no particular reason other than that's where the guy you were talking to on Reddit lived.
Yeah, that's literally it. And he moved to like Denver the month later. I only lived with him for like a couple weeks and then I like found my own place and moved out and like did my own thing.
Well, I was going to say, I'm surprised you stayed. I mean, it's not the most hospitable place to stay, but you know.
Yeah, I really like it here. It's a really good vibe. Like the people are super, like genuinely super, super nice, especially in like Minneapolis, St. Paul, like the actual city part. There's like, I just really, really love it here. The weather is terrible, but the people are awesome.
That's great. That's great. So, so you're out, all connections severed with the cult and doing well.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Have you watched any other documentaries about things like NXIVM or read any books about, like Steve Hassan's book on the Moonies or any of this kind of stuff?
Yeah. I've watched some like documentaries, some like various documentaries here and there. It is super interesting to see. I've got some friends also who are like ex-Mormon, ex-Jehovah's Witness. There's a lot of like commonality in tactics, like the actual language is different and kind of like the nitty gritty is different, but the tactics and the like feeling is very similar from cult to cult.
Yeah. The NXIVM stuff is wild because they have a lot of the same terminology even.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, oh, they were, yeah.
Intensives even intensives.
Wild. Yeah, no, it's crazy. I was following the NXIVM stuff. That's nuts.
So here's a question for both of us, sort of both of you. How much would you have to pay in courses auditing to go back and get in good standing? I don't know. What do you think?
Okay, so they actually did this thing that I saw this happen while I was there. They changed the way that freeloader debt is calculated to where if you, for every like 5 years you complete, anything you did during that 5 year period is wiped.
Yeah, that's smart.
So for me, it would just be the last 2.5 years, which I think was mostly just like auditor training. So maybe 25,000 dollars, something like
Yeah.
that, in freeloader debt. And then, you have to retrain your whole bridge back up to where you were. So another like $30,000-$40,000.
Yeah. So when I left the Sea Org, I actually paid my and my wife's freeloader debts. That was way before we got officially expelled. So she had been in the Sea Org for 14 years. I had been in the Sea Org for 4 years because I'd finished my staff contracts prior to that. And we paid $40,000. And that was what we negotiated it down to back in 2006 when we left the Sea Org. So yep, but they ain't getting any money from us now. All right, let's see here. Sorry for being non-topic related. I know the story of the AA run intro, but the adorable little girl with the guitar at the end, what is her story? So that is my youngest daughter. That video was taken when she was like 4 years old. She is now 12 years old. But the video is so damn cute that I've got to keep it in there. So let me see. Yeah, she's my youngest. I have a 16-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 12-year-old, and they are all awesome. People always ask, does she still play the guitar? The answer is no. We have 2 guitars in the house, and nobody plays them. Okay, let's see. Here's a question. How was LRH able to label Scientology a church and therefore obtaining their tax-exempt status? Well, there are some genuinely held beliefs that Scientology has that one could argue are religious in nature because they're spiritual in nature. Let me know what you think about this, B. So, Scientologists do genuinely believe that we are all immortal spiritual beings, separate from and senior to the physical universe. And only through Scientology auditing can you regain your native godlike powers. And even L. Ron Hubbard seems to have convinced himself of all of this stuff, regardless of whether he knew he was bullshitting about many of the aspects of Scientology. He did seem to genuinely believe all this and genuinely believe in immortal, spiritual, godlike beings. Would you agree with that?
I would definitely agree with that. Like, if you just took what Scientology presents as their core teachings, and said this is a church, I'd be like, yeah, okay, sure, that's a church. You just don't talk about all the abusive stuff, and you're golden.
Exactly. If they could figure out how to do Scientology without being so money hungry and abusive and destructive of families, they really wouldn't be so objectionable. But then again, if you took all that stuff away, it also wouldn't be Scientology.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, I'm not totally sure what this means, but let's check this one out. From Shelley Schoenfeld, to help young people like B, so scary, love and happiness to you and all.
She's sending the money to help young people like me. Thank you very much.
Oh, excellent. Oh, okay, good. Makes sense. Thank you very much, Shelley. For those who want to support the Aftermath Foundation, you can go to the aftermathfoundation.org. I do have a banner about that. Let me pull that up. Oh, you can go to the aftermathfoundation.org, or if you want to support the Aftermath Foundation and get yourself a little merch in the meantime, you can go to the spshop.com. Get yourself a little Mike Rinder bobblehead. Oh, by the way, on the 100% of the proceeds from the SP shop go to the Aftermath Foundation. People keep asking us if we're going to have more products instead of just the bobbleheads and these little SP bracelets. And very soon now, we actually found a merch fulfillment provider who we're going to work with, where we will essentially be able to offer relatively unlimited amount of products because we won't have to be personally doing the fulfillment anymore. It'll be one of those things. So lots of good stuff coming on the horizon on that one. Let me just scroll through and see if there's anything else we can answer. So do you ever have anyone reach out to you? This is just a question from me.
Yeah.
I'm saying that, like, do you really?
Every once in a while, like when I post something, so I have my own YouTube and TikTok and everything that is not related to Scientology, but I do sometimes like talk about my experiences on there. Whenever I get a bee in my bonnet or an urge to kick a hornet's nest, I'll make a post about it. And if they get big enough, like I'll have people reach out to me. I had somebody reach out to me who unfortunately was still a minor. Her parents were on lines at like some mission in the Midwest, and she was just like super miserable. And I was like, unfortunately, there's not a ton that I can do because you're a minor, but I did give her the aftermath, foundation information. And then the most recent video that I posted, a month ago or whatever, I had somebody reach out to me who she had been on lines at San Francisco, like she was a second gen, and she had left, and we talked for a little bit. It was cool. I always
great.
like hearing from other survivors.
Do you want to mention your YouTube channel?
Yeah, sure. It's Mood Candy, MoodKandi. It's all the stuff on the back wall there. I make tutorials for that.
Very cool. Oh,
Arts
hey,
and
what
crafts.
was this story you told me just before? What was it? Oh, yes. Tell the story real quick. You found out that someone really huge in like the EDM rave scene
Yeah.
is a second gen Scientologist, and they keep that low key, or
Yes, they keep that super low key. So I'll like put the TikTok in the comments. Like I'll put the link to the TikTok where I have all my sources and stuff in the comments. But basically, so after coming here, I got really big into like EDM and the rave scene and festivals and stuff like that. And someone who is currently extremely famous in that like musical genre, his name is Sullivan King. Somebody like there was a post floating around like, hey, why are we not talking about the fact that Sullivan King is a Scientologist? And I was like, excuse me? Excuse me? So I looked into it, and his real name is something Prescott. And so I went to school with his cousins. So I like knew him kind of peripherally growing up. And his grandfather is something Gluck, who has the like Renaissance art studios, who's a whale. He's a Scientology whale. And so it's this like he's a third gen Scientologist, and his wife is like completed Power Plus.
so his real name is Keaton Prescott.
Thank you. Yeah, his real name is Keaton Prescott. His brother like completed at least through like OT3 or OT5 within the past couple years. His wife was on lines at ASHO within the past couple years. Like there's no record of him doing things in Scientology recently, but his family are all on lines. Like he's definitely it's one of these situations where like even if he doesn't personally internally consider himself a Scientologist, as far as we're concerned, he's a Scientologist, so I made a video about it, and I was like, here's all the evidence, here's the deal, I know this guy, like whatever. And my TikTok channel just was like so noisy for like 2 weeks of people. Half of the people were like, oh my god, thank you for telling me, and half the people were like, I don't care, I'm going to support him anyway. And I was like, why are you commenting stupid things on my video?
Interesting. Very interesting. Is he as famous as Skrillex?
He is like probably the next tier down from Skrillex. He is on his way for sure. Skrillex is prolific in multiple genres and has been like pioneering stuff for a long time. Sullivan King is pretty exclusively like dubstep and like heavy metal type stuff.
Because Skrillex is a Scientologist, no matter what anybody says. I know he denies it, but he is. So you've got two of the biggest guys in the genre are Scientologists. That's pretty crazy, especially since that's not a Scientology friendly genre.
It's super not a Scientology friendly genre. Like I was surprised because there's pretty like prevalent substance use that is very frowned upon in Scientology. Not like I'm not accusing Sullivan King of doing drugs. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm just like it is very surprising that he got that big and managed to keep it quiet. There's like footage of him performing at Celebrity Center as a teenager floating around,
There you go. All right, here's a question for you from Alexander Barnes Ross, who is himself a former Scientologist. How did you find a new purpose after leaving?
Spite carried me for a while. It was very helpful for the first couple of years to know that there was like a dedicated group of people who would be super stoked if I just like rolled over and died. And so that kept me going for a while. And then I, like I said, I got very lucky in the group of friends that I found and the friends that I made. They're all really like just super wonderful people, who do, like, some of them do volunteer work, a lot of like community outreach stuff. And so I, through them, sort of learned how to build community and how rewarding it is. And then from there, like, the pandemic hit, we were all stuck inside, and I was just like, okay, I'm gonna just teach people like how to do this craft, and like teach people about like, let's treat each other nice, and like do beads, and like let's all just be hippies together for a little while we're stuck inside. And that's been really nice.
So that brings us to this question, Shelly again. B, do you make those cool, pretty things behind you?
I do. They're bracelets. They're rave jewelry specifically. And the technical name for it is Candy. Here's one that I'm in the middle of working on.
Nice. Very cool. Okay, let's see. We have more of these than I thought. Let's just hammer these out here. What would a normal person with no prior contact to the church have to do to be declared an SP? These days, they wouldn't.
Yeah, there's no way.
Yeah. And one for Goldie. Goldie, thank you for all that you do. Yes, Goldie is the master moderator. Thank you very much, Goldie. And let me see. We might be all of it. Oh, wait, there's one. Oh, here we go. Flat Pat, what kind of dog do you have? Is it a giant poodle? Who's she asking?
I don't know. I don't have a dog, so it's not me.
Well, I do have a Labradoodle. Goliath is a Labradoodle. Okay, so why did you actually pay your freeloader debt? So when my wife and I left the Sea Org, we were not leaving Scientology. We left the Sea Org in 2006. We didn't leave Scientology until 2014. If you are going to continue to be a Scientologist, you have to pay your freeloader debt. So that's the answer. We were just leaving the Sea Org. We weren't leaving Scientology. Okay, so from MLB Tracy, Michelle Boltman Tracy. Nice. Okay. Do you think there's a connection to all the Scientologists with cancer and the blue asbestos on the free winds? Personally, I don't. Unless they were all getting lung cancer, which they're not. So I know the blue asbestos, if not completely removed, has been encapsulated, because let's be honest, David Miscavige is a health germ freak. This guy is infatuated with cleanliness. He would not go on the free winds if he thought there was a cancer risk there. But what are your thoughts on that?
I definitely thought it was. I mean, I'm interested to see what you think it is, because there's, even like prior to the retrofits, like, we're not talking about currently, but in the past, like, it was like, I want to say maybe 40%, 50% like cancer rate with OT8s. It was so common. Like, when I was that 12 years that I was in, it was like, if someone's OT8, you almost start counting down until the cancer diagnosis.
Well, sure. I mean, to be fair, anything that happened before the retrofit certainly seems like fair game. Like, what the retrofit was like, almost, 2008? What was it? 2000?
No. The retrofit was like, it was after that. It was way after that. It was maybe, I want to say 2014, 2015.
That could be. But here's the thing, because there's so many more people who go through the ship than OT8s. In fact, OT8s at this point are probably the minority of people who go through the ship, because all the people going through the conventions and the events and all that stuff, that it's like, I just don't honestly know what it is. I just don't know that I can put my finger on the blue asbestos and be like, that's the reason. Because cancer seems to be prevalent in Scientologists regardless of whether people go to the ship or not.
That's fair, but OT8's the only time when you stay on the ship for like 6 months. Anybody else, you're going for a convention, you're there for a week.
Sure. I mean, there certainly could be a connection. I guess the emphasis of how I think on this isn't that there can't be a connection there, but that there seems to be a cancer problem in Scientology over, above and beyond anything that you would think the free winds was responsible for. There's something The amount of Scientologists that die from cancer is just insane.
Crazy. It's crazy. Maybe it's just that like they don't go to the doctor and they don't catch it early enough. But like,
Yeah.
it's so excessive.
Yeah. All right, here's one for you. This is actually an interesting one. How do you get a divorce if your husband can't speak to you?
I waited. So I was like, they do not want him staying married to me. And rather than try to like muddle my way through filing divorce proceedings and trying to figure out how to do all that from Minnesota, I was like, if I just wait, they will find me and serve me with divorce papers. And sure enough, they did. I found out that he got a depression motorcycle after I left.
You should have been like, half of that's mine.
I was just like, get out of here. Get out of my life. I'm done.
All right, here's one. Why the convoluted nomenclature? For secrecy? I don't really know why.
Just to feel special.
I mean, so, you know, L. Ron Hubbard was in the Navy for a while. His dad was in the Navy. Maybe he picked up this affinity for abbreviating everything. There's abbreviations for abbreviations in Scientology. I know there's I know there's ideas about how cults work and create this feeling of insularity and superiority by having a special language that only you understand. And there's probably something to be said for that. I just have a hard time believing that's why L. Ron Hubbard was creating these words, but maybe it is.
Some of it is literally just old timey slang that Scientologists still say because LRH was old and talked that way, you know, and now it's like convoluted nomenclature because nobody says those words anymore. And then, yeah, like I think some of it was just to feel special, just to like elevate it and be like, we're better than everyone else. We have these special words to like define what we're doing. Yeah. Side note on that. Scientology loves abbreviations, but you know who doesn't is Mini-Me himself, David Miscavige. People would get in trouble for abbreviating Golden Age of Tech 2. You would get in so much trouble for saying GAT2.
You'd get in trouble for saying GAT? I thought you were going to say you'd get in trouble for saying GAT.
Nope. If you like write out in a telex or like you write in a compliance report or you say GAT, any of it, GAT2, no, you got to say the full thing, Golden Age of Tech Phase 2. Anything less than that, you get in trouble.
You know, that's just a perfect example of him being so capricious and changing his mind and, you know, one way today, another way tomorrow, because for the Golden Age of Tech 1, he and his staff would say GAT, and also for senior CS Int bulletins, they would call them SCIBs.
Yep.
SCIB 165- whatever, and it was no problem.
Yep.
Just crazy. What a douche. All right, here's one. We're getting this might be the last one. It seems there's no heir to Miscavige. After he drops his body, does Scientology fold up shop? How long can it last without him? That implies that Miscavige is doing something special to keep Scientology going when he's not. If anything, he's the reason if anything, he's part of the reason it has so much trouble. Miscavige is not the one keeping Scientology going. What are your thoughts on this?
So I will say it is a full cult of personality at this point. Like there is a lot of like worship that goes on around David Miscavige. Especially at the lower levels. I'm sure upper levels people know he's crazy, but like at lower levels and especially with public Scientologists and staff members and everything, it's really like hero worship the ground he walks on type of thing. And there is very much a viewpoint, or at least there was in 2018, that he's like the one who saved the church from people who tried to like take it over, and he's holding the show together. We're doing this for Dave.
So he definitely has built up that perception around him, and people do think, you know, he is amazing and probably secretly OT-15. But like when people get up in the morning and do their jobs, it's not because David Miscavige told them to. If someone else replaced him tomorrow, they would still get up in the morning and do their jobs.
Yeah, it's whoever takes over just needs to either be slick enough to do what he did and take over smoothly, or I truly can't see him actually naming an heir. It was supposed to be Tommy Davis at one point.
Who said that? Who said that?
It was a rumor. I don't remember who said that. This was something from like years and years ago. Years ago.
Yeah. Crazy stuff. Okay, this is probably more for you, if anything, because I sure as hell don't have one. From Imperishable Neat, were there any interesting past lives you were convinced you had that you feel like sharing? I never did that shit in my auditing. I always avoided it.
Yeah, that was kind of one of the problems. Like, so Aaron, you've talked about how even when you were in, you were not really like it was hard to stay in.
Yeah.
It was similar for me where like I just kept trying to do the things and like doing what I was supposed to do and not really getting the result. But I was like, well, there's got to be something wrong with me. So I'm just going to like fake it till I make it. I learned really early on to stop asking questions. That gets you in trouble real fast.
Yeah. So literally, it's one of the reasons I didn't want to get auditing, other than not wanting to talk about, private stuff that I was like, why am I going to talk about this with a stranger? I didn't want to have to be forced to go past lives because I felt like it was all bullshit. And I was like,
Yep.
I'm not down with that,
Yeah.
All right, cool. We made it. That is actually it. Thank you everyone for watching and listening. Wow, we did over 2 hours. It didn't even feel like 2 hours. That was incredible. That was great.
Yeah, it was great.
Well, we should do this again and chat about some other org stuff, maybe some topical news stuff, and then and I'd love to help promote your channel and drive people over there as well. So
That'd be awesome. You know where to find me.
Thanks everybody for watching and listening. Talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye.